The morning I accidentally proposed to my colleague was supposed to be the most ordinary day of my life. Instead, it became the day that shattered every wall I had built around my heart. Even now, years later, I can still remember the silence that filled the office after the words slipped from my mouth, the way dozens of stunned faces slowly turned toward us, and the unbelievable expression on the woman standing in front of me. Before I could explain that it had all been a misunderstanding, she smiled with tears gathering in her eyes and quietly accepted as though she had been waiting for those words for a very long time. In that single moment, my carefully planned life disappeared, replaced by a future I had never imagined. If stories about kindness, unexpected second chances, and the beautiful surprises life sometimes brings inspire you, we'd love to hear your thoughts after the story. Your support and conversations help keep heartfelt stories like this alive. My name is Rowan Mercer, and at 31, I believed life worked best when everything followed a schedule. I worked as a financial analyst at a large architectural company where numbers behaved more predictably than people. Every weekday began exactly the same. I left my small apartment just after 7, stopped at the neighborhood bakery for coffee, walked the same 3 streets to the office, greeted the security guard, and settled into my desk before anyone else arrived. Most of my coworkers thought I was quiet because I was shy. The truth was more complicated. After losing both of my parents within 3 years and watching a long relationship collapse under the weight of grief I never learned to express, I had convinced myself that keeping emotional distance was the safest way to survive. Work became my shelter, spreadsheets my comfort, and routine my closest friend. Everything changed 6 months before the accident when a new project coordinator joined our department. Her name was Maren. Unlike everyone else, Maren never seemed intimidated by silence. She filled empty moments with warmth instead of noise. She greeted the janitors by name, remembered birthdays without reminders, and somehow noticed when someone looked exhausted before they admitted it themselves. She wasn't loud or dramatic. Her kindness simply appeared in hundreds of tiny moments that most people overlooked. At first, I kept my distance. Then I noticed she always brought an extra muffin on Mondays. One rainy afternoon, I discovered the second muffin wasn't for herself. She quietly left it on the receptionist's desk because the young woman skipped breakfast to save money. Another day, I saw Maren helping an elderly delivery driver carry heavy boxes into the building while everyone else hurried past. She never mentioned these things. She simply kept doing them. Without realizing it, I began looking forward to seeing her every morning. Our friendship developed slowly. We shared coffee during lunch breaks. We compared childhood memories. We laughed over embarrassing office mistakes. She somehow made ordinary conversations feel important. Still, I never considered romance. At least that's what I kept telling myself. One Friday afternoon, our department prepared for the retirement celebration of our longtime manager. Decorations covered the conference room, speeches were rehearsed, and someone suggested creating a humorous presentation filled with memorable office moments. My assignment seemed simple. I was asked to present a small appreciation gift to the retiring manager and conclude with a playful speech thanking everyone who had supported the department through the years. To make everyone laugh, one coworker jokingly handed me a decorative ring attached to the gift box, saying I should dramatically kneel while presenting it. Everyone thought it was hilarious. Including me. Unfortunately, everything unraveled because of one completely unexpected interruption. Just as I stepped onto the small platform holding the gift, Maren entered the room carrying a stack of documents that had arrived late. At that exact second, someone accidentally bumped my elbow. The gift box slipped. The decorative ring rolled across the floor. Instinctively, I hurried after it. The tiny ring stopped directly beside Maren's shoes. Without thinking, I bent onto one knee, picked it up, looked up at her, and nervously blurted the words I had been rehearsing for the manager. Except I mixed up every sentence. Instead of thanking the manager for years of dedication, my flustered brain somehow produced one unforgettable sentence. "Will you marry me?" The conference room became completely silent. Even the music stopped. I froze. My face burned with embarrassment. I opened my mouth to explain. Before a single word escaped, Maren covered her lips with trembling fingers. Tears filled her eyes. Then she whispered one word. Yes. Nobody laughed. Nobody moved. The room stood perfectly still as if time itself had forgotten to continue. I quickly tried explaining that everything had been an accident. But before I finished, I saw something in Maren's expression that made me stop. She wasn't smiling because she thought it was funny. She was smiling because, for one impossible moment, she had believed every word. The celebration ended awkwardly. People quietly returned to work. I spent the rest of the afternoon convinced I had destroyed the best friendship I had ever known. That evening, I walked home under bright afternoon sunlight that slowly faded into a golden evening, replaying every second in my mind. I expected Maren to avoid me forever. Instead, she knocked on my apartment door the next afternoon. She wasn't angry. She simply wanted honesty. She admitted she had cared about me for months but assumed I only saw her as a friend. Hearing those accidental words had awakened hopes she had buried long ago. I apologized repeatedly. She smiled gently. Then she surprised me again. She said she wasn't embarrassed by saying yes. She was only embarrassed that her heart had answered before her mind realized it had all been a mistake. Those words stayed with me. Over the following weeks, something unusual happened. Instead of avoiding each other, we became even closer. The awkwardness slowly transformed into openness. For the first time in years, I stopped hiding behind routines. I admitted how terrified I was of losing people. She admitted she feared never being chosen. We discovered that our greatest fears were mirror images. One sunny Saturday, we volunteered together at a neighborhood community center that organized meals for elderly residents living alone. Watching Maren comfort an elderly woman who had recently lost her husband changed something inside me. She listened with patience that couldn't be taught. She treated strangers like family. Driving home that afternoon beneath a brilliant blue sky, I realized I had been lying to myself. I hadn't accidentally fallen in love. I had simply refused to admit it. The accidental proposal hadn't created feelings. It had revealed them. Even then, fear refused to disappear. What if I confused gratitude with love? What if she deserved someone braver? Weeks became months. Our friendship deepened. Every sunrise coffee. Every afternoon walk. Every shared laugh. Every quiet conversation slowly built the courage I lacked. Then life tested us again. Maren's younger brother was seriously injured in a construction accident. She spent nearly every evening at the hospital. Exhaustion covered her face. Yet she still smiled at nurses. Still thanked doctors. Still worried about everyone except herself. One afternoon I arrived carrying homemade meals she hadn't asked for. Another day I drove her home because she had fallen asleep in the hospital waiting room. None of it felt like sacrifice. It felt natural. During those difficult weeks, I finally understood what love truly looked like. It wasn't grand speeches. It wasn't perfect timing. It was choosing someone every ordinary day, especially during the hardest ones. Thankfully, her brother recovered. The crisis passed. Life slowly returned to normal. But I knew I couldn't leave one question unanswered forever. Nearly 8 months after the unforgettable office incident, I invited Maren to the botanical garden where we had once spent an afternoon photographing flowers for a charity calendar. Bright sunlight poured through towering trees. Children laughed nearby. The world felt peaceful. This time there was no audience. No coworkers. No confusion. No decorative ring. Only 2 people standing beneath blooming cherry trees. I told her everything I had been too afraid to admit. I confessed that losing my family had convinced me happiness never lasted. I admitted I had hidden behind caution because hope felt dangerous. Then I reached into my pocket. Inside rested a real engagement ring I had spent months choosing. I knelt once again. But this time there was no accident. No misunderstanding. No rehearsed speech. Only truth. When I asked her to marry me, she laughed through tears before saying yes once more. She later confessed something that still makes me smile. The first accidental proposal had broken her heart for one afternoon. The second one healed it forever. We married the following spring beneath warm daylight, surrounded by friends, co-workers, neighbors, and the elderly residents from the community center who insisted on attending. Even our retired manager joked during his speech that no retirement party in company history had ever produced such an unexpected beginning. Today, years later, whenever someone asks how we became engaged, people expect an elegant love story. Instead, we tell them about nervous mistakes, mixed-up speeches, embarrassing silence, and an accidental question that uncovered feelings neither of us had been brave enough to confess. Our children never get tired of hearing it. Neither do we. Because every time we remember that impossible afternoon, we're reminded that life doesn't always wait for perfect plans. Sometimes it gently pushes two frightened hearts together before either one is ready. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to know what part stayed with you the most. Sharing your thoughts and reflections helps create a community where stories of hope, compassion, and second chances continue to inspire others. Special request: tell us in the comments, do you believe that some of life's greatest blessings begin with an unexpected mistake? As the years passed, I came to understand that love rarely arrives exactly the way we imagine. Sometimes it comes wrapped in awkward moments, unexpected misunderstandings, and imperfect timing. Yet those very imperfections often become the moments we treasure most. Looking back, I no longer remember the embarrassment of accidentally proposing in front of an entire office. I remember the courage it awakened, the honesty it demanded, and the extraordinary woman whose heart had quietly been waiting beside mine all along. And every bright morning when we leave home together, hand in hand beneath the daylight that first witnessed our new beginning, I silently thank fate for the happiest accident of my life. If you'd like, I can also write a full YouTube version of around 2,000 words with even more cinematic scenes, emotional twists, and stronger audience retention.